Good afternoon. I'm Joe Steier. We're going to talk a little bit about my dissertation as part of the Penn CLO program. We're going to kind of focus on three questions. What was the research question? What were the findings? And what are we doing today with the research at Steier Healthcare? We're involved in long-term care. We're the 8th largest company in senior care. And so we're looking at the research around leaders as teachers. And with so constant healthcare changes daily, we wanted to find a way to deploy some kind of leaders as teacher framework across our management suite to push education out as a management competency. So the research questions really dealt with what level of knowledge did managers have about adult learning theories and facilitation methods for being an instructor and teacher. And then if we gave them that competency and we trained them well to be great teachers, how would that affect business performance, ROI, Q12 engagement, earnings per share, profitability, really kind of the business throughput to see if this investment paid off for itself. So what was great about this study was it was one of the largest quantitative studies, and our board supported the project 100% because they obviously were very interested in leaders and teachers field. So in the research question here, take a look at the dissertation. We start out with that question. So we've got managers who usually lead by directive autocratic methods. Now we're going to basically be trained to be great teachers. The idea was we would send out certain educational initiatives that were strategic for the company for operations. The treatment group, we're going to present it out as a teacher. The other group would do it in a normal way, a normal course of business, and we wanted to see how that change happened. So what we saw initially was the findings were the competencies for managers about understanding what it takes to be a great instructor, teacher, facilitator, adult learning theory was very low. When we did the intervention, the scores came up in the 70s. So the intervention worked and people became aware of what it took to be a great teacher and facilitator. Keep in mind we had 69, I think, facilities in this. 15 got the intervention and with the treatment group. The other 54 didn't. And we wanted to see how the company ran over 3/4 of data. So initially the findings were this, I think were interesting. We ended up having about 35,000 pieces of quantitative data in the data set. We had a lot of CNA, line staff scores, pre and post test scores. So we look at the findings. It was a large, nothing qualitative, all quantitative. We had great findings that really showcased a couple things that are important. If a manager became a great teacher in the treatment group, their engagement scores for their direct reports and their stakeholder base was much higher. So we realized that something happened, a little bit phenomenon, that when a manager could teach something, an initiative, a strategy, program for the company, it did change the relationship between them and the stakeholder base they work with, and the engagement scores were higher, statistically higher than the non-treatment group. That gives a lot of excitement about, okay, it affects engagement, maybe it's personal ownership, maybe it's that they're facilitating a better way of doing it. Different things around what drove that measurement. The other thing we looked at too was kind of around retention. We looked at a couple quarters. The buildings that had managers working as leaders and teachers did have lower turnover. And so we were really excited to see that in a stakeholder base of 11,000 people, that this idea of leaders and teachers as a method to drive performance wasn't just like Kirkpatrick level 1 and 2. We were starting to see what we call real solid ROI as a framework and investment. So we started seeing that. The thing we're really trying to look at in the research and some of the limits of the project was that we only used 3/4 of data, obviously, and we went out longer. We think we would have got some strong EBITDA, some NOI, some other business metrics that are a little longer trailing for us. So when you think about the importance of field, I think a lot of things are important here. I think the leaders of teachers is an important issue to take pressure off training budgets and CLOs across the country, because it's a great way to diffuse knowledge and I think build a real learning company, kind of around the same days work. So we wanted to be a learning company. We had a learning pillar, and the idea was to become a learning company. It was the best way to deploy it, and it gets all new respect for, I think, education in general. So I think it's important. The application here was we took the research and realized the power of that, and we deployed that in our company to expand the pillar, to make more investment pillar, and now we're expanding leaders and teachers today as we speak to recertify more teachers across our company. I think that in the future with change going quicker and the rate of change being faster in healthcare, for example, we're constantly getting bombarded with new regulations, new regulatory things. We're going to deploy competencies and information at much greater speed. So it's a great way to fuse knowledge out in a disparate way that builds people together versus waiting at the training department by themselves in isolation to do that. So we think it's a great time with the recession and healthcare change to deploy this knowledge. I think the other important thing for us, if we look at it, is that because this was all quantitative, it was a great piece because it gave real business measurement at a board level. So what I liked about this project, and I was so blessed that the way it came out, was it showed at the C-suite level and the board level, leaders as teachers, as a funds investment, does get returns that will obviously excite your board and excite your C-suite. So keep that in mind. It's a very important piece in the area. So we look at this page. I've got the actual copy here that obviously that we put a lot of time into. But I think the idea for us to see boards looking at training dollars and realizing it can have major impact on the value of your company was a great breakthrough. So the research question, just to recap quickly, was really around what do we know about adult learning theory and teaching facilitation day one before we were trained? How fast can we teach teaching competencies in people as facilitators under Knowles theory, adult learning theory? And then the question was, if we did do that, how would it affect business performance? That's the research questions. And we saw a 70% improvement in teaching competency, and we did see some statistical valid measurement in things like retention, turnover, and engagement, which really drives our culture here at Citrus Healthcare. So some great findings, and we believe we would have had NOI had we had a couple more quarters to look at it deeper in the research. Thanks for your time. It was an incredible good program. I think this is really important research for us to think about as we look at ways to interface the corporate learning function in any organization, especially healthcare. Have a great day.